So I want to talk a little bit about feeling like a failure or feeling like you set out to do something and it didn't work, it failed. That's what the definition of failure is. It means that you set out on a goal and you didn't achieve it. And it could be something big. It could be something like a marriage, a career, you dropped out of college, a relationship didn't work, and you feel like a failure. And in addition to not achieving your goal, in addition to that, you start pointing the arrow at yourself too and start experiencing a lot of shame. And not only externally did this thing not work, but now internally you're feeling a lot of shame and you're beating yourself up. And I want to talk a little bit about failure because I like this Brene Brown quote: you should not negotiate who you are. And you should not negotiate with shame about who you are. You should not negotiate with failure about who you are. Who you are is, the value is solid. Certain character traits will kind of change and evolve, but the value that you have is solid, and no amount of failure or shame should ever negotiate that with you. So I want to talk about the two types of failure. The first one that I'll talk about is permanent failure. And permanent failure is something like you were married and you got divorced, and your goal was to be married for a long time, and then you ended up getting divorced, and there's no going back on that. There's no fixing it. There's no changing it. Something of that nature. And this is something that I have somewhat been through with teaching. It's not something that externally has failed yet. I wouldn't say I've quit teaching yet, but it failed a long time ago. As soon as I was graduating college, I pretty much knew that I didn't want to be a teacher. My last year of college, I already knew that this goal to be a teacher long term, that it failed. And that's something that's a hard pill to swallow. And what I've found is it's like a seed. And I thought that this seed for teaching was going to grow into this beautiful tree at first, and I thought I was really going to enjoy it. But the seed never grew anything, and it failed. But I found that I was still holding on to it as a plan B, or, still holding on to the idea of it that I once had. And I found that for anything to ever replace it, like I would like to replace it with YouTube and doing that, for anything to truly replace it, that seed has to die. I can't, that energy, it cannot be transformed into a new thing until it dies. And I think it's a matter of giving yourself a permission slip to let it die. And it's okay. For better or for worse, it needs to die. And once that seed dies and that shell breaks, then the new sprout and the new plant that will work can take its place. But it's not until the seed dies that it can transform and a plant will be in its place. But as long as we're holding on to a seed, a plant can never grow. I think it's very impactful to write out on a piece of paper, I give permission for this seed to die. And to send it off with love. I appreciate everything that teaching has given me. I appreciate the fun times that I had, and I appreciate the things that I learned, and you could even write specific memories, but I'm excited for this new plant to grow, and I give permission for this seed to be gone so that a plant can grow in its place. It's the monkey branching. You can't, make momentum and swing from vine to vine while you're still hanging on to the past branch. You have to eventually let go of the past branch, and when you do that, that's what causes the momentum to be able to swing. So if you have this kind of failure where it's a permanent failure, there's no going back, I want you to just give yourself permission to let it go so that you can replace it with something more beautiful. The other kind of failure is a temporary failure. You've tried, you've had fits and starts, you try and it's working and then it's not working, and it's working and it's not working. And I would use for myself an example like YouTube. I have these fits and starts where it works and then I kind of give up for a while, and then I start and then I give up, and it's this temporary failure. But in my heart, I know that it's not something that I ever want to permanently give up. But it's something that in the moment, it feels like a failure. And I just want to show you a graph of this is what progress actually looks like. Whenever you're doing something appropriately challenging. I had a friend who had a dream where he was in a race and he had big wings. So it's these people with like these big wings. And so the gun went off, like to start the race, and he's like, okay, we're gonna fly. But instead of flying, everyone else in the race, they took their wings and they folded them like this in front of themselves because it was more aerodynamic to run. The wings were not very aerodynamic to run with. So they would fold them like this, and then they would, run charging ahead kind of with their wings in this point. And he was like, what in the world? He's like, that's not your wings, or you're literally using your wings as an obstacle. What? He's like, well, I thought you're supposed to fly with wings. And so he's like messing around. He's like trying to get it. They're already almost at the finish line, and he's messing around. But the path of the race was a canyon. And so they're running around to get to the other side of the canyon. And so he's messing around. He's like kind of flailing. He like lifts and flops and lifts and flops. And finally, he learns how to use the wings. And right at the end, he won the race. And it's very interesting how it's like so many people have chosen an easier path, involves less failure. I mean, you just put your wings in front of you and it feels easier. It involves less failure, but it's also, you end up with a less beautiful product. And it was messy, there's a messy middle learning how to fly, but failure doesn't mean that, it's final necessarily in something like this. It just means that you're learning how to fly. And you could give up, you could fold your wings in front of you, and you would experience much less failure, much less tumultuous emotions, but you wouldn't feel the beauty and the power of what it feels to fly and to see things from such high heights. You'd just be living on the ground all the time. And I love this Teddy Roosevelt quote. I feel like it really sums up failing at doing something big. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. So I think when you have a temporary failure, it shows bravery. It's a sign of growth, it's a sign of courage, it's a sign of bravery. It takes no bravery to do easy things, and no failure is involved in easy things. Now, if you do easy things all the time, you perceive yourself to be better at things because you never fail, but you're not objectively better at the thing. You fail more when you do things that are difficult, and it feels like you're not very good, but you actually are objectively better because you're challenging yourself. So failure is not a sign of bad skill. It's a sign of challenging yourself and a sign of growth. And so take it as a sign that you're doing something big, that you're doing something important, that you're doing worthwhile. It's normal to have a messy middle. It's not just all upward. It's, you go up and then you have a failure, a temporary one. But the next time you do a little better, and then you have a temporary failure. The next time you do a little better, and it feels like you're just like ping, 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 just ping-ponging around, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. But the trajectory is uphill. The highs are higher than the previous highs, and the lows are higher than the previous lows. And there is progress being made, even though progress is not linear. So I just want to encourage you, there's no failure until it's final, until you've actually given up. And if you're alive, then it's never too late to start again, to make it a temporary failure. And as long as you're alive, you are not a failure because it's not the end of you. You are not final. And so it's never too late to get up and try again. You err, you have shortcomings, it's messy, you're learning to crawl and walk and fly, and involved in all of that, you fall. And it's just a matter of, if you never want to fall, then you have to just stay on the ground. And I think that if you're watching this video, you know that you don't want to stay on the ground. If you had the courage and the bravery and the hope to reach for more, then there's falling involved sometimes in that, but there's also flying involved in it. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. Bye.